Hi, everybody. I'm Tracy Allen, and I'm here with PopHorror.com. And today we're chatting with Daniel Mark Young about his newest film, Into the Black Abyss Deathstream. How you doing,
Hello.
Dan?
I'm doing good. It's good to
Good.
talk to you finally, sort of person to person. Yeah.
Yes, it's been a lot of chatting through text.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now is finally.
Yeah. I mean, so you've been a pretty big supporter of ours for a number of years now. And you're an associate producer on this project. So thank you for coming on board and actually
Of
being
course,
very deeply involved with the film.
of course. Yeah, I've always loved the stuff you've done, and like I've said several times, I've seen a lot of horror, and a lot of it is um, by rote. And so the stuff I've seen you do has always been um, left of field, which to me is awesome. So
I really
I love it.
appreciate that. That's kind of what we try and do a little bit. Um, we're very restricted in terms of budget and things like that. So what we physically can do, I mean, we make the money go as far as we can, but it's more, our films are very conceptual. They're kind of, they always have fairly big ideas behind them. Probably bigger ideas than the budget really allows, but we make do.
Isn't that always the way?
Yeah, true.
So this film is your first feature length film, correct?
Yeah, so predominantly we started in 2015, I believe, and we've made I don't know 4 or 5 short films. A couple of them, were fairly well received by the press and that. And so I mean, and yourselves at Pop Horror did a number of articles about things we were working on and things like that. And so yeah, I think we got to a point where we struggled to kind of get other projects off the ground, unfortunately, despite having, a little bit of, I guess, minor success. Um, and we just kind of decided we wanted to do something that we had full control over. So budgets have always been the biggest issue for us. Again, we struggled to kind of raise the money in that. So we wanted to do something that we knew we could control. We could shoot it for a very small amount of money. I mean, it's a feature film and it costs less than 3 grand. So, which is it's quite nuts, really.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it was kind of it's basically double the budget of For Her, which was our last short film that we made in 2017. So we took
Mhm.
twice the budget and made a feature with it, which is crazy. But yeah, we kind of wanted to control a lot of the factors that were out of our control, trying to get other projects off the ground. So locations were an issue. Um, Trying to hire multiple actors, getting the right ensemble together, getting everyone's schedules to meet. So we said, well, we've had enough of we spent a good year, probably just over a year, trying to get 2 or 3 different like short films off the ground, and nothing was kind of working. So we just said, right, let's control the situation. Let's write something that's very self-contained, one location, one main actor, shoot fairly cheaply. And this is kind of what we came up with. I had a few ideas for other things floating around, and it's just like, well, that idea from that could work. That idea from that could work, and we can just kind of piece things together and make something new out of it. And that's where Deathstream was born, really. And it was one of those things where I had an idea for a feature film at the time I was kind of calling into the Black Abyss. And it just so happened that that was going to be a really expensive project to shoot, and we were definitely like years and years off from doing something like that. So I said it'd be cool if this project, this really low budget, small project, was actually in that same world and was kind of like a lead into, like the bigger project that we wanted to do eventually.
Like a point of concept.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I've kind of since writing this, I've kind of come up with an idea that this is potentially the first part of a trilogy, and the last part would actually be the film that we really wanted to make all those years ago, but just obviously it was just going to be too much money. So hopefully we can make the other two and complete a trilogy. We'll see.
Yeah. Awesome. So besides the length, how is this film, how's Deathstream different from the shorts you've done so far?
Well, for a start, I mean, yeah, obviously it's a lot longer. The shoot was a lot different in terms of when we did run for her, things like that, we would shoot them over the course of several days in a row or several nights in a row, depending on what we were doing. Um, this one got quite complicated because of everyone's schedules, and obviously things like COVID kind of played a part and delayed things quite a bit. So we actually shot it sort of. We started by shooting weekends, so which isn't ideal because some weekends we couldn't shoot, some weekends we could. And then we had big breaks in the middle for like summer when we didn't have a lot of. We only had, I think, 4 or maybe 5 hours per night to actually shoot, because we're actually shooting in our producer's house and they have neighbors. So it's like we kind of could only get away with so much to a certain sort of time of night. And obviously in the summer, it doesn't get dark till like super late. So we wouldn't have even got an hour's worth in during the summer. So we break for the summer. Then a bunch of other things. So there's a lot of gaps in between. So really the thing is, it's funny because it's like, it took us 16 nights to shoot. Over the course of 18 months. So, I mean, ideally we would have said, let's just take 2 weeks off work and everything and all commitments and just say, look, we'll shoot every night and get it done. And that's ideally how we would have done it. But because certain things got in the way, people got ill, they couldn't do it, or, such and such has got COVID. So we've got to kind of give that a week or so. And, we have to be extra careful on that kind of side of things. So a lot of things delayed the sort of shooting of it. And that's why it took 18 months. And it was supposed to be shot a lot sooner. It's like, the crazy thing was, as soon as we finished the shooting draft, the actual shooting draft is dated March 2020. And that's literally a couple of weeks before we went into lockdown. We had no idea that was going to happen. We had no idea at the time quite how severe the pandemic was going to be and how it was going to affect the project. But also how, weirdly enough, it kind of has parallels with the story and what happens in the film and things like that. There's this whole thing about kind of being trapped in your house and, it's very strange sort of how there's certain things you can kind of. We've been asked several times by people, did the pandemic play a part in influencing the story or the script? And so it was all written beforehand, so not really, but so yeah, it's a different experience. And I think our first kind of foray into feature films probably wasn't the greatest idea to do a found footage movie that's kind of is presented as a live stream, because that in itself poses a number of challenges. I think people tend to think found footage movies are really easy to film and they're, you can just pick up a camera and run around with it and there you go, you've got a found footage. It's really not the case. There are rules to it, and it's actually, in some ways, can be more complicated than shooting a normal cinematic film. And so there were times I was just thinking, I wish we could just put a cut in here, or we could change this angle, or we could shoot this from a completely different, but we can't, because this is where we've had to put the camera and this is the reason we've had to do it. And this is where Matt has to, and again, Matt did a lot of the camera operating himself in terms of, we had this whole thing where I'd guide him, I'd say, this is what I want you to do, but I left it down to him to kind of, control the kind of nuance of like, how he was going to handle the camera and things like that. So, overall, a really crazy experience compared to making anything else. Just for those reasons, it was just unlike anything else. And I think if we'd shot a cinematic feature film, it would have just felt like we'd done Run or For Her, but an expanded kind of version of that, over a longer time. This was a different animal anyway. Even if we'd have done this as a short or a feature, this would have been a very, very weird, because we have to kind of think about how you're going to edit the film as you shoot it, because we know we try to hide a lot of the cuts. Some of them really aren't hidden. Obviously, there's a lot of kind of glitching of the camera and there's clearly cuts, but there's a lot of stuff, especially in the first half of the film, where we pan the camera around really quickly and we hide a cut in there, and there's a lot of that stuff going on. And so that it feels like a lot of the takes are really long. Some of them aren't. There's maybe something that feels like a one take is actually 2 or 3 shots. So, but there were takes that were 7 or 8 minutes. So it works both ways as well. So, yeah.
It's like Hitchcock. You pulled in your Hitchcock, the rope and the putting the little slices in there.
Yeah, I wish it was. I wish it was as good as that.
You gotta start somewhere, And honestly, you know what? I'm really impressed with this. So I did want to talk about my experience with it. I just watched this morning, and so one, I think I told you this already, but I'm watching it, and it's literally like a Twitch stream. So you're watching it, going, "Oh, look, there's someone behind. Let me comment."
Yeah,
You
that's
can't
kind
comment because it's a movie.
that's
So
that's kind of what we wanted. Yeah, we wanted.
yeah,
people to feel like
and you're kind of like you like want to say something to encourage them or whatever, but you can't because you're not really there.
Yeah.
And also, this sounds really weird, but I had two different issues that happened while I was watching, and I thought they were part of the movie, and they weren't. So my earbuds like crackled and died, and I thought like, oh, this sound went off, and I'm watching it, but I could see the thing at the bottom, worth the bottom. I'm like, wait a minute. So then I had to fix that. So I thought that was part of it, and then it was buffering. It kept buffering, and I'm like, why is it buffering now? Oh, because it's really buffering right now. Because it just seemed like so real and like real time. It was very interesting, and I also liked how so you're looking at Zach's face, and then you have the stream on the side. So you're going back and forth,
Yeah.
and you're thinking like you're listening to him, you're looking at him, and you're reading over here. You don't want to miss anything that's going on over here because they might have seen something you didn't, but you're also listening to him. So you're always kind of on edge, and you're always thinking like, am I looking in the right place? Am I missing something? So that was another, I really like that too. That was, it keeps you on your toes, and you never really fall into a relaxing state. And also the fact that he carried the camera around just seemed very natural, like someone who did Twitch videos would do that. And sometimes in found footage movies, you're like, yeah, like they're really going to be filming them say this, whatever. But it felt natural because he's literally talking to people that are responding to him. So when he's afraid, he's looking to them for comfort and for advice, and they're giving it to him. So it felt natural, well, a lot more natural than probably 99% of the found footage movies I've ever seen, just for that.
That's great to hear. That's really cool. Yeah, I'm glad you had that experience because it was a balancing act with how much we wanted it to feel as real as we could make it for what we were trying to do, which was difficult in itself, but also not to put too much information up on screen because there is a bit of reading involved, but like I said, you're concentrating between Matt's character Zach, what he's doing, what he's saying, and what's going on in the background and everything. But you've also got this literal stream of people commenting and things. And so I think like the way we balanced that out was to have him anything that was super important, he responds to it. And so as he's responding to something, you go, right, I know that someone said something, so I can kind of, if you don't concentrate on it all the time, it's not like you'll miss out on loads of details. But yeah, I mean, again, it might be one of those things where people might rewatch just to kind of see certain things. But there's, don't get me wrong, we padded it with things like there's just random comments that don't really, it's not all relevant to, the film. It's not like you have to read every single one. That would have been quite mean, I think, to sort of expect people to do that. But yeah, anything that's super important, like we kind of linger on screen for a while or he will respond to it. So anytime it looks like he's reading a comment, there's obviously something on there that's kind of fairly important. But I'm really glad that you kind of you felt like it felt quite natural, because I think that's something Matt as an actor was quite worried about as well. We had an initial meeting January 2019.
Goodness.
Oh, it's been in production for ages. Yeah, so January 2019, we got together and had a little meeting with Matt where I kind of explained what the idea was. We didn't even have a script at the time. And I think he sort of said, well, I'm kind of, I don't know, I'll give it a go, see what happens. But I sort of said to him, look, go and just watch some like live streams, just watch some gaming streams and Twitch streams and stuff, and just see, like, try and pick up some mannerisms and things like that, and just kind of, see what you can come up with. And, I think he did an amazing job, to be fair. So yeah, kudos to Matt for that.
Yeah, just because obviously there was nothing really there for him to, like, no comments to him for him to really comment, respond to until later. So, for him to hold out the emotion and then react as if he's seeing something, that he did a really good job. And the fact that he was like on and the camera was like this, and it was just like his face, like that was must have been a lot of pressure. And I think he did an excellent job on it.
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much holds the entire weight of the film on his shoulders, really, to be fair. I mean, everything, he has to sell everything, So, and I said that like very early on, to say, look, this isn't going to be easy. This is like, everything relies on how well you sell it, But he's a theatrically trained actor, and he's used to doing kind of one-man shows and things like that. So I said, look, think of it like that, and I think we'll be okay, and we'll just kind of take it step at a time and just work at it. And we did a read through over Skype at one point, which I've actually got the footage of somewhere. I was going to use it for something, but we never did. So we did like a really early read through once the script was done. I think it was August of 2020, so we were still kind of in lockdown, couldn't really meet up and stuff. And so we did that, and we talked about a lot of those things there, and just kind of just finessed a few things. But like, I think he did a really good job in terms of making it feel like he was this character. That's what he does. He just goes in live streams, and like I said, everything needed to feel realistic and natural as possible, because I think the first 40 minutes are quite slow burn, and not a lot really happens. It's all very much character building and backstory, and finding out who this guy is, what he does, etc. And kind of we needed to kind of, since we had that kind of luxury of time, to do as much with it as possible in terms of his character, and making as much of the situation believable, so that when all the really crazy stuff happens, you've already bought into it, and it's just, we can take a bit of liberty with how crazy it gets, and hopefully people are still on board and think, yeah, fair enough, I accept that that's happening.
I especially liked that he toured his house when he first started, because at first, sometimes you watch Twitch videos, you're just like, all right, like kind of like the comments are saying, like, come on, get on with it, But it tied in so well with the map and stuff that I just thought, like, oh, that was really clever.
Yeah, that's like my over attention to sort of detail, in terms of, I love movies that kind of it's a very exposition-y type of thing to do, but I like to know the geography of the place, especially this. This is set in one location. So it's good for everyone in the audience, and for myself as a audience member, to know where everything is, so that when he is like panicked and running around, and I need to get to such and such and do this, exactly where that room is, in adjacent to that room, and it's not, there's no sort of like, well, how did he get to there? Well, why is that? There's no sort of question of it. So yeah, it's just kind of laying out the geography of the house. I thought was quite important to do very early on. Literally, it's one of the first things we do in the film. But that's also an excuse to kind of make a few little sort of jokes as to stuff that happens later and things like that, and just lay a few things in there, and kind of, but also for him to be a bit playful with it as well. And just because it's like, this is all the first sort of 5 to 10 minutes is really just that. And it gives us a good look into sort of his personality as well. So it's a good opportunity to kind of show that off a bit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And also when the lights go out, and sometimes when you're watching found footage, you're like, why are they pointing the camera, whatever, but you could tell, like, this is his only light source, is this camera, so he's holding it in front of himself to use as like a flashlight, so it's like doubling as a practical flashlight for him, and also as a great way to frame the shot and to get without seeming overly trying too hard, or trying to make something work that didn't work.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right there, because I do like. I've got a real soft spot for found footage movies. I mean, I wouldn't say guilty pleasure. I'm open about it. I really like found footage movies, but there are a lot of times I think that there's inherent issues. I think with some of them where you do think, well, okay, come on, why would you do that, or why is that happening, or yeah. And then, like you say, we wanted to give reasons for why, not so much explain everything, but make things make sense so you didn't question so much stuff. But yeah, I think we had that idea, and again, the moment you're talking about when the power's cut and then everything kind of buffers, and that's that moment, that long moment where it buffers and buffers and buffers, and then we have that kind of jump scare. That was something that we came up with very early on. We didn't want to have. We've got a few jump scares in there, but we didn't want to overdo it. But I think that's one that we came up with quite early on. And I actually think, and I was thinking about this later, I think it was Matt that actually came up with the idea for that. And we just said, that's great, we're going to use it. So, and that was literally before, because we shot a concept trailer to do the Indiegogo. And I believe we actually shot that for that as well. So we had the idea already going into it that we could toy with like the idea of like what can happen during a live stream. Well, you can get the internet can go down, it can buffer, and we can use that to kind of jump back into the action at a very critical point and give people a bit of a jump scare. And so yeah, we kind of one of the few jump scares we've got in the film, but I think it's quite effective.
Yes, definitely. It's just so realistic. You could just imagine yourself really just sitting there watching. And when you're watching a horror movie, you've got like the music is coming in, and you're like, okay, this is the part where I need to be scared because I know scary things are going to happen. But there's no music and there's nothing, so you literally have no idea what's going to pop out of any corner at any time, and it could be anything. And then you're like, who are these people and what is their problem? Like what so yes, I liked it.
Cool, that's amazing. Thank you very much. I mean, there is music, but it's very sound design based. That's something I didn't want to have traditional sort of music in a found footage movie. Some people can get away with it, but we knew we couldn't, and so I did this thing where we kept it very subtle and very quiet. So it's kind of this sort of bed of noise that's throughout the film, and it's sort of you're never sure if it's really there or not. So it's not like traditional music or anything. It's sounds and layers of sounds and sounds that have been treated with different effects and things like that, and very weird, sort of bizarre, very off kind of like natural sounds, but that don't sound right, if that makes sense. So it's like the sounds of running water and things like that we slowed down and stretched and reversed and things like that, and threw in, just did weird stuff like that and played around with like different frequencies and things like that, because I did some research and apparently there are certain frequencies that if you hear them for long enough make you feel really uneasy. So we put some of that in there, like hidden just to see if it amped things up a bit. But I think towards the end when things get really crazy and we know that we're in kind of absolutely mad territory, we know that it's kind of gone off the rails, I think that's when we kind of increase those aspects a bit. So there is a bit more sound design that's sort of music towards the end of the film, but it's peppered throughout and it is there, but it's just very, very, we kept it very subtle so that it wasn't like obvious that, oh yes, this is music,
It's subliminal too, because you don't even know you're hearing it, and you're hearing it, it's affecting you, and you're just like, it's just ramping it everything up even more than it's nothing. Which is weird because I did not notice any sound at all. And now that you say that, I'm like, oh, that's really cool, because that it like changed my perspective of it without me saying, "Oh, there's music," or whatever. So
yeah,
that was
I mean, like I said, it's probably a stretch to call it music, but yeah, it's stuff in there.
So what gave you the idea to do this sort of story? Like, what did it start somewhere and it grew into something else, or did it? I mean, you talked a little bit about how you took some ideas from different places to add in, but like the main story, is that something that that just popped up, or did you have an experience, or?
So like I said, I I kind of had this idea for a film that I was going to call Into the Black Abyss, and it was surrounding a cult, and it was very kind of quite H.P. Lovecraft inspired, so kind of like a creature movie. But I kind of wanted to, like I said, do something that was a kind of a toe dip into that world. And so I had a separate idea, which I thought would make kind of a cool short film. And it was basically like a live streamer is doing a live stream, and it's like a home invasion movie, so just standard home invasion stuff, and like the audience are kind of telling him what to do, and he's got this interaction with the audience. And that was a whole separate idea. And then it got to the point, like I said, when we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do, and it just kind of made sense to try and do something in that world of like Into the Black Abyss, to kind of ease ourselves towards potentially doing the feature film that we wanted to make, but also use these ideas we had that we probably wouldn't use otherwise. Like, it was a cool idea, but I couldn't see us necessarily shooting that. I don't know, like so it's like, well, that's a cool idea, we can use that, let's make that the kind of part of the main concept of what we want to do, and base it around that, but have it set in this world where this cult exists, and this, you think, oh, maybe it's just somebody breaking into home, but it's actually worse than that, because it's a cult, witchcraft's involved. We don't get too specific over things. We kind of try to keep details about their intentions relatively sparse, but give you enough information to kind of say, yeah, they're not good.
I like too that the internet. It's almost like they invaded the internet. Like it was like a virus almost that could be sent through by a stream through the video game and then just spread through. I mean, because what's the first thing you do when trouble happens? You pick up your cell phone and you call somebody or call the police or whatever. Well, what if it was your cell phone that was causing the problem? So it's like you're catching it almost by doing what you would your normal reaction would be, which is watch or you don't know what's going on until you watch it. Then when you watch it, you're screwed.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of that plays into sort of some of the influences behind it, because there's a fair few sort of nods to other movies, and we pay a little bit of homage to other films and horror movies and found fiction movies and stuff like that. So in that respect, like what you're saying, it's kind of a bit, there's sort of elements of potentially like The Ring in there, and things like Videodrome and things like that there's, something kind of hidden within what's happening that's kind of, that changes, people's perspective on things. And like you say, it's kind of like, you could look at it like it's a virus kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of kind of the vibe we were going to go for. But yeah, as I say, there's certain, and kind of the idea of like almost a kind of a group seance as well, which is an idea I think we kind of not so much borrowed, but other films have kind of used a similar theme. So we thought it would be cool to kind of do something along those lines and just have it so that, that again, by kind of broadcasting this game to people, he's actually, suckered them in too,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very clever.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we talked a little bit about how long it took to make, which is forever.
Yeah.
I can't imagine whoever you had doing your script continuity must have been like off the wall, because there's so many little things like, oh, he's sweating here, but he's not sweating. You have to like catch all these things. And it's been 6 months since the last time you filmed it. So, you got to like go back and watch it all. So
I'll let you in on a little secret. There was absolutely no continuity at all.
Well, there's not. You can't tell.
There was for like the first week. We were going to try and be really hot on that and try and be like really like strict about it. And like we have to take photos of everything, and like every time we leave a room, we have to make, because again, it's a house, it's being lived in. It's not like we could just leave everything exactly where it is. Things get moved all the time. So yeah, like there's a lot of continuity issues, but yeah, we tried our best to like there are times there's a lot of photos of my phone where I've just taken photos of Matt and gone, right, just stay there, let me take a photo of you, I need to see how much blood's on you, I need to see how much,
Mhm.
this, that, and the other. So we did a little bit, but like the bare minimum, I'll be honest, it was like, yeah, we like if there was like, again, there literally was a period where we hadn't shot for probably 4 or 5 months, throughout the summer and part of the winter and that. So it was kind of like, well, where are we at? How long was your hair? Like, did you have stubble? Like, what,
Right.
all that kind of weird stuff. But yeah, so it did play a big sort of factor into it, but we didn't go as sort of crazy into it as you might have thought. But I'm glad you didn't sort of notice anything too major.
No,
So
no,
it's good.
it was mostly like, watching his hair. Like sometimes, it's neat in the beginning, it's all nice and combed. And then later on, it's all like sweat stuck to his forehead. And just thinking about how long it was in between the shoots that to keep track of all that must have been,
Yeah,
like you
I
said,
think. Well, I think it's
someone
one of
lives
it.
there. So you
Yeah,
can only
yeah,
do so much with the house itself. But
yeah,
I think the amount of time the camera focuses on things in the house, I honestly don't think that anyone's going to
yeah,
notice.
yeah. That's what we were hoping.
So, so let's get to the meat of the movie, the kills.
Yeah.
So we had some pretty gory, disgusting kills. And some of them, like, did I see an eyeball on the corkscrew?
Yeah, yeah, there was a
Yes.
over on the corkscrew. Yeah, I think part of this was like because we had an opportunity to do something like this, which we hadn't really done before. I mean, Run wasn't like particularly gory. For Her had a little bit, but I think we wanted to do something a little bit more extreme and a bit more kind of brutal. And I think because we were so angry that we couldn't get a lot of stuff made, I think when it came to writing, it was just like, yeah, let's just, let's just write the most gruesome thing we can think of. So there's quite a bit of fun involved in that, and I was like, well, let's try and do things that maybe we haven't seen before or haven't seen so much in horror movies, and definitely not in found footage movies. So try and like I said, by the time we kind of get to that, especially right at the end, we kind of, everything like all kind of rationality goes out the window and we kind of goes into a bit of mad territory. So we kind of felt like that's a great opportunity to kind of go really crazy with some of it. And so, yeah, we did this sort of eye gouging, which, was quite fun to sort of do that really. Yeah, there's a few in there that, I felt like, again, they've probably been done before, but we tried to do in a unique-ish way, just to try and keep it interesting, try and keep them sort of. You never knew quite how it was going to go. Like, I think the corkscrew one was quite obvious, but beyond that, it was like, you didn't quite know how brutal we were going to get with it or quite how it was going to go. Like, you knew they were going to die and get it nasty, but not, so yeah, we kind of had a bit of fun writing those as well, just kind of figuring out new ways to kill people, which sounds really weird, but yeah, and it was kind of fun doing that. It was like, well, have I seen that done somewhere before? I better check. Is there somewhere you can search online to find out? So yeah, we had a bit of fun with that. But yeah, all as much practical effects as we could get away with. Unfortunately, again, we really wanted to do everything practically. There was some stuff we couldn't, again, because it's a house that's being lived in. We got to be really careful how much blood we put everywhere and stuff like that. So that was always in the back of my mind. What I haven't really gone on record too much about saying this, but we actually destroyed a bathtub. Um,
No.
unintentionally. So, one of the biggest costs of the budget was replacing a bathtub.
Oh no.
So yeah, that was an interesting. So literally the scene where Matt's character Zach is, he's high, he's thrown up because apparently we need a vomit scene in every film we do. Don't ask me why. It's something that's just there. It always gets written in. And yeah, he has this moment in the bathroom where he's kind of talking to the audience and explaining, a bit about his history, and why people sort of, feel a certain way towards him. And so we have this sort of moment again, a sort of a jump scare where, you know, the door's kicked in and, you know, one of them with a baseball bat comes in and there's a struggle and, you know, essentially the intruder gets his face smashed in. Literally the shot of Matt hitting the guy in the face with, which you don't really see. We shot it from a very low angle. You see the aftermath of it, but not the actual bit. And so that whole thing was like, you know, it was a rubber baseball bat for a start. We used all rubber weapons, nothing that was, you know, even the gun was rubber. I mean, I think that's fairly obvious if you look close at it, but, you know, so like, I mean, it still hurts if you get hit with it. I'll be honest. I can attest to that because I think at some point we all hit each other with it on set at some point. You know, we had to have a go with it, you know. So yeah, this quite thick, heavy, dense rubber baseball bat. And we padded the bath. We padded James, who's played a lot of the masked intruders and stuff like that. So like, you know, everything sort of went to plan. Matt hit his mark and everything, and we thought, great, that's it, fantastic. We got everything we wanted. Brilliant. Let's cut and we'll pack everything away. And that's it for the night. We'll move on to, you know, the next side of that shot next time. And so we literally peeled all of the padding back and realized there's a hole this size in the actual bath. The rubber baseball went through it. Yeah, so that's something we had to sort of deal with. So safe to say, 48 hours later, myself and our grip, who's also one of our producers, Chris, were helping to fit a new bath. So yeah, that was one of the bigger expenses to the budget. Yeah.
Talk about an unexpected expense.
Yeah. Could have done without that one.
Yeah, well, you're lucky. I heard a story on another film set where they were filming in someone's house and there was some fake blood, and then, you know, they keep it contained to certain rooms or whatever, and then the people who own the house, their dog came running through and like ran through the fake blood, and then like ran all over all the carpets and like the floors. So it could have been worse.
It could have been. I mean, I think we did all right. We did okay. I mean, you know, we put guts and stuff everywhere, and that we got a way of cleaning up after that, so that was fine. You know, I handmade those guts as well. It took me 3 days to make. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because we, again, doing it on the budget, we did so much of it ourselves that it was like, you know, yeah, we could get like makeup artists and stuff to come in and do all the stuff, or we could just kind of do it ourselves and hope for the best, really, was with a lot of it. And if it doesn't look great, well, we'll work around it, or we'll find a different way to do it, or we'll reshoot it. And that happened maybe once or twice. But yeah, so we kind of just saved money anywhere we could by, you know, doing a lot of stuff ourselves. And so yeah, safe to say I spent 3 days making intestines and that, but you know, they came out all right. I think they work. I think they look, you know, authentic enough.
Oh yeah.
You know, but yeah, the good
nasty things.
Yeah, I mean the gore stuff was fun to do. It was always fun to do. You know, but like I said, it's more amped up in this compared to anything we've done before. Because I knew that we want to push certain boundaries with it. We wanted to sort of push the extremity of this film, and go sort of places we haven't sort of gone before with things like that. So yeah, that was always fun to do. So yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about like what goes into, because what the audience sees is a small part of what goes into making the film, a film. So let's talk a little bit about like post-production, like what, because of the found footage aspect of it, you're like you said before, you're limited to what you can really show and do and change and add, because you want it to look continuous. But so how did you do that in post?
Well, a lot of it comes down to actually pre-planning stuff. Like, you know, we were a bit fast and loose with certain things we did, but we knew that if we needed to cut a scene in a certain spot, that when we filmed it, we knew we need to factor in how we were going to edit those two pieces together. So we tried our best to say, right, here's a good place where we can throw the camera around a bit, or make a movement, or have something pass in front of the camera, or something like that, where we knew we could do that. And then other times it was just sort of like, well, there's no way around this. So we need to put some kind of glitch or something in there or do something like that. So, yeah, there's a lot of, some of it's really tricky. Some of it's really, really tricky. I mean, the whole thing is, I think it's worse the fact that it was shot over such a long period of time and trying to make that feel like it flows like it's an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes or whatever. Like it's one continuous thing that we don't really break from. But like obviously having moments where the camera sort of freezes and there's buffering and that helps, you know, with kind of adding some cuts and things in there and that. But yeah, it was all post production's nuts. You know, it's always a crazy thing, and there's so many different elements to it. There's so much going on. You know, it's not just the fact that, you know, we've got Matt running around with a camera and we've got to make that feel like it's a cohesive thing that's happened, even though it was shot over a long extended period of time. But also the fact that we've got to tie it all together with this user interface that has chat and stuff like that going on, and that all needs to kind of feel realistic, and it's that what's happening is affecting that as well. So when we do have like glitches and a breakdown in the picture and it feels like we're losing the picture quality, you know, the signal little bar goes down as well. Weird little details like that. It's just trying to make the whole thing seem as real and believable as we possibly can, even though it's completely ridiculous. You know, but yeah, the post-production side of it is nuts. And like, you know, you can't edit it like a traditional film. That's the thing. You don't have coverage. We don't have like 5 different angles of one thing. When someone's, you know, it's literally, it's maybe 3 or 4 or 5 takes, but it's always Matt holding the camera in this pretty much the same place. It's like the same thing. So we can't really say, well, let's, you know, we can only pick the best takes. And then from that shot, we need to work our way into the next shot and make it seem like there is no cut or that it's seamless in some way. So, like I said, a lot of that comes down to planning that. And sometimes that was just done on set at the time. It was like Matt would come to set and say, look, I've got like 11 pages to do tonight. I can do this section here, but we're going to have to cut somewhere because I can't do this section and this section. So we worked out how much we could push Matt and how much we could get out of him in one take and say, right, that's our limit. That's where we need to have a camera movement or something to break up so we can cut, we can go away, we can get him to focus on the next bit, and then we can set up for the next lot of, you know, shots. So that's kind of how we approached it. And that did make things a lot easier than trying to piece it together all in post. But yeah, it was tricky. There's a lot of stuff we felt like we wanted to get away with but didn't. A lot of things just didn't go to plan, so we had to work out ways around them and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of things that, there's a few things we wanted to shoot that weren't in the script and we were going to do it and we didn't. There was a scene I wanted to do which I thought would have been really cool, but we ran out of time, and that's where Matt was up in the roof, and as he comes down, I had this whole idea that he could fall through the roof hatch and break part of the roof off and then end up in the, you know, game room covered in bits of rubble and stuff like that. I wanted this really cool shot. We would have done very similar to like one of the shots at the end where we'd do it on a green screen. But yeah, like we didn't get around to that. That would have taken too long to shoot. And we had in the script a post-credit sequence as well, or a mid-credit sequence, which we never shot because we ran out of time as well.
Oh.
So, but I've got a feeling we might recycle it for the beginning of the next one, so it's still somewhat, it might still be usable. But yeah, in terms of post-production, there's so many elements to it. There's, you know, again, luckily a lot of the practical effects were practical effects and we had a lot of stuff done on set, but there's also things like certain visual effects we had to do. We couldn't really set someone on fire. We didn't have the money for that, or, you know, the insurance, we didn't have the insurance for that either. So, you know, there's things like that, you know, we have to sort of think about doing all the effects work, and then it's sound mix, it's, you know, it's everything. And again, it was such a small crew of people, and I'm probably doing about 90% of the jobs as well. So it's like, you know, like I said, it's about 4 of us making a film, really, at the end of the day. You know, we've obviously had help from amazing people on Indiegogo to help fund it, but it's still only a very, very small crew of people making a film, and so there's a lot of people doing just multiple jobs on set because that's the only way we can get it to work. So I was, directing, doing makeup, and everything else, whatever else needed to be done. So yeah, setting up, breaking stuff down, whatever needed to be done, we all just kind of chipped in and did it. So yeah. But yeah, post production is pretty much 90% my baby. I do pretty much all the editing, sound mix and everything. So it's like, yeah, it's very much, as soon as we wrapped on it, it was like very much focused on, I think that's something else I haven't actually spoke about in terms of post production is because we shot it over such a long period of time, we actually managed to run most of the post production in tandem with shooting. So we would film, we'll film 7 or 8 minutes worth of footage one night. And then I'd go, right, I can spend the next week in the edit, just editing that together so that I know we've definitely got everything. We don't need to go back and reshoot something. And sometimes we did. Sometimes we need to go, right, okay, that shot we did last week, we screwed it up. We need to do it again, and then we'd go for it again. And then we'd get that and then carry on where we were sort of thing. And I think shooting in chronological order really helped with that as well. But so, yeah, by the time we'd shot, got to the end of shooting, the film was more or less edited. It was just adding in the last little bits of footage and stuff like that. So it wasn't a case of waiting till it's shot, then edit. It was running in tandem. So post-production started as soon as we started shooting, really. That was the crazy thing. And I think that helped with shooting this kind of film because when you've got something, when you've got it and how it works in the edit. And if we weren't able to cut 2 bits of footage together, we've got the choice to either find a way around it or go back and refilm it and make it work. So yeah.
Actually, I mean, if it wasn't so, time consuming, that sounds like the best way to do it out every time, really.
Yeah.
So I was excited. Okay, I didn't see his face, but I was excited that Derek Nelson was back. And I got to hear his voice, sort of.
Yeah.
So that was fun. What was that like having him back again?
Yeah, because we haven't worked with him since 2017. It's the only time we've really worked with him was on For Her. But we had such an amazing time with Derek. We love Derek a lot. He's one of the nicest people we've ever worked with, and I think any chance we get to do anything with Derek, we will. And so when we wrote this part, I said, right, it'd be really cool if we could just get like Derek to voice it and just because he's a guy in a mask, we could probably get away with, using his voice, but as somebody else's, body. So, because he lives quite far from us, it's quite a, long trek from us. So it's a fair drive.
He's not in the US?
No, he's over here in the UK. He's just, but he's quite a way away. So it's a long, he traveled so many hours and hours and hours and hours to work with us on For Her. And so, yeah, but we got to the point where we were just like, do you know what? Just, would you come down and do it? He's like, yeah, of course I will. We're like, okay, brilliant. Amazing. So yeah, he traveled something like 4 hours to get to us to spend about 4 hours with us and then drove 4 hours back. So it's pretty crazy, but yeah, so we didn't have a lot of time with him on set, but I think it's kind of cool having him there and, to be that character. And, he's like the biggest name in the film, but we keep his face covered the whole time and disguise his voice a bit as well. So, but he's fine with it. He's so into it, and he's such a professional. Like, he came to set, he knew his lines. Like, he just firing his lines off. Like, it was so easy for him. Like, it was nothing. I love how professional Derek is, and just like, and he's just a nice guy to hang around with and just chat and talk, and talk to, obviously he's a massive love for horror films and that. So, but yeah, no, he's always interested in like what, because he's had the script now for quite some time. He's did a read through with us and everything. And then just to kind of, after all that time, be there, be on set and actually, you get to meet Matt and everybody else and catch up and things and just kind of, just actually do it and just, be physically a part of it, I think it was pretty amazing, really. So yeah, any chance we get to work with Derek, we will, because he's just great. He's just great like that, and I think that's how a lot of people feel. I think that's why he works with a lot of the same people time and time again, because he's just a great person to have on set, and he will just get stuck in and get involved, and he'll just be like, yeah, throws himself in 110%, and you can't ask for more than that, So yeah.
True. So what's next? So where is Into the Black Abyss Deathstream going now that it's been made, and where's it going?
Well, so essentially, obviously, we've got to take care of the backers who've helped us get it funded. So as soon as I finished this interview, we're going to package that up and get that ready to send out along with all the other extras and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, we're looking to launch it on Amazon at the end of the month. So people can see it in the US and the UK. Hopefully, we'll add Germany and Japan next year to that list as well. Hoping to maybe do a festival run of it at some point and see how we go with that, and just see where it goes. I mean, it's very it's kind of the definition of an independent film in that it's just, again, completely independent. Like, a handful of people made a film for very, very little money, and I think it would be cool to see that it could go somewhere, that it has got legs, it could take off. And that's always a very sort of exciting thing. So, I mean, the only thing we could sort of do really is, like I say, promote it as much ourselves and try and, distribute it kind of ourselves through Amazon, and see what happens. If somebody's sort of, a distribution deal would be amazing. I'm not going to lie, but, that's sort of, again, it's a hard sell. It's a sort of quite a niche found footage movie. So, I don't know how well that would sort of, how sellable it is really, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I mean, even if we just sort of go about it the independent route and try and just, see how we fare and just try and get festival buzz going and things like that, you never know. There might be, there could be a future there. Fingers crossed, there's enough good sort of will off of this that we can get another one funded and made. Possibly not any time soon. I am working on other scripts, so we'll see how it goes. But you never know. I mean, honestly, I think I want to take some time off and recover from this one, because it's been a really crazy 4 years getting this made. But yeah, I think there's definitely ideas. Like I said, I think this is easily ideas for a trilogy of films. So, a second and third part, with the scope of it getting much grander each time. And so I think, and another thing I think is it's interesting to tell this story over multiple kind of styles, and not so much genres, but styles. So I think, like, the next one, I have the idea to make it more of a kind of a mockumentary style than a straight up found footage film. It kind of would be sort of semi found footage, but, and then the sort of last part, I'd love to do a full cinematic movie, but we just got to see how things go. And if this is like the selling point for it, then yeah, maybe it just all be like a found footage or mockumentary style, series. But we just got to see what opportunities open up.
Mm-hmm. And that's the good thing about festivals, is that people are seeing it, and it's one thing for your friends to see it, but it's another thing to have industry people see it and say, "Oh, that's a great concept. I want on board with that." And you never know when those little matchups can happen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, like, the only thing I think is gone against us potentially is the fact that this has taken so long to kind of get out there. If this was out when we wanted it to be done and out, we'd have beaten a lot of people to the punch, because I think there's been a sort of a real uptake in these kind of movies in the last year or 2 years. I think the summer we were in lockdown, that, after we'd written it, Rob Savage's Host came out, which, isn't too similar, but it's similar enough in some ways that we just thought, okay, that's it's got a little bit of that vibe. Okay, fair enough. And then he kind of made another movie called Dash Cam that came out really recently that felt very much like what we were doing. I was like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. So yeah, I love Rob, but you know, it's like, yeah, there's I didn't want to kind of be sort of accused of ripping anyone off. So, but yeah, so I mean, like I said, I mean that may go against us. I don't know. We'll just have to see. But yeah, like I said, until we get it out there, get it in front of people, because that's the main focus right now is to get it in front of everybody and just see what reception it gets. I'm sure there will be people that love it, and I'm sure there'll be people that don't. But that's all good.
Yeah, as long as it causes a reaction.
Exactly. Yeah.
You
definitely.
don't want the people to go, eh.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said,
You know,
if people hate it, I'm cool with that. If you feel passionately enough to say that, that's fine. Okay, I can accept that. It's all good.
all right. Well, I think our time is done here.
Yeah,
It's really good talking to you. Finally, like a real live conversation and not
yeah. No, it's
just
been great.
texting.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I can't wait for everyone to see this movie. I'm really excited. I wish my daughter and her boyfriend really want to watch it, so they're excited to see it. So I can't wait for them to see it. Can't wait for other people to see it. It's really a different found footage film. So
yeah.
I'm excited for people to see it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.